Hey guys, welcome to another ride in the struggle bus where every wheel's an empty triangle. Today we're riding with another friend. We're going to be playing against Nico, who some of you may know as Tuerta. He doesn't make videos himself, but he's helped many a player and is a great part of this great community. After seeing my first video in this series, he reached out to me to do a similar video. So here we are, riding with our friend Nico. This game's an interesting one. White gets just a teeny lead early in the game, like tiny. We're talking like 2 or 3 points. Definitely not 35 points or anything like that. Okay, maybe it was closer to 25, but really, who's counting anyway? But then a huge game-deciding fight happened, which really made the rest of the game kind of irrelevant. So come take a look and see how that one ended. As always, I'd like to thank you guys for watching these videos. I'd like to thank my patrons for their support. And finally, I'd like to thank Nico for riding along with us today.
Go is very stressful. It's always hard. It doesn't even matter who you're playing against or what the situation is. Go is hard.
So let's get into the game. Okay, so we are black this game. We are going to be following the rules as the best we can. Obviously, the game will be a little more complicated than the normal bus ride games, but we were still going to be following the rules. We're still going to be taking the corners before the sides, before the center. So I'm going to do my typical opening. I typically approach this stone, and often they pincer me. If they don't, I'm going to back off to L3. But usually I get pincered here, so we'll see what Nico wants to do here. So he's going to back off, so I am going to do our little mini Chinese opening here. Okay, so he's approaching this stone. I am going to respond to this. I'm just going to back off, and we'll see if he attaches or slides in, or just tanukis. He may just tanuki here. Generally for the opening, I don't worry too much about the specifics as to, what direction we're playing or how we're responding to specific moves. Just as long as we're making moves that make sense, you're generally not going to fall behind in the game. Okay, so he attaches. We are going to Hane here. He's going to Hane under. And we are going to Atari. He's going to back off. We will connect. We could look at descending here. But we're just going to connect. He's going to connect. And then we have the option of playing Q14 or R18. And we played through this quickly. This is just Joseki. This one might be one that you're not used to seeing in your games. But this is a very common one that AI showed us, and it's one that shows up in my games very frequently. So I'm just going to play on top here, and he can extend or he can capture this stone. That's his choice. And so here we're going to just look at tanukiing. We've got our strength. We're strong enough here. White really doesn't have too much here. And so we're just going to go and we're going to approach the other corner. Again, focusing on the corners, then the sides. Okay, so he attaches. This is the normal variation. We are going to Hane. And then we can look at the tiger's mouth if we wanted to approach here. But instead, I'm just going to connect. This is our normal response. And we can actually look at keeping these stones just the way they are and looking at taking this corner.
It's going to be hard to use this thickness he has here. He's probably going to defend here. He could also be very brave and just sort of play something like this.
When we do that, he may block. We can also just look at taking our extension here. In this case, I am going to slide in here, go threaten this corner, and then we'll come back and deal with this. If he pincers us, we can jump out this way. If he answers here, we can go and take our base. I would expect you guys to finish this variation and either come and play D10 or C10. This, if you're comfortable leaving a group like this behind, you can look at playing elsewhere. But typically, I usually suggest to finish your variations before you move on. Though you will notice that many players don't do that. You just need to be able to be comfortable with a group like this. So we are going to jump out here. make sure we don't get surrounded, right? We did leave this weakness here, and so we need to make sure that it doesn't get too weak on us. And so this, basically, once we played this move, White decided that this corner was no longer large enough, and so he went and took the side. Basically, the corners are larger than the sides, right? We know this, but this is me already kind of taking the corner, and so he went, well, that corner was available. It's not available anymore, right? The corner's gone. So let's go take the side and also pressure this.
There's really no continuation on the upper side for him, not that I can think of. I think the right side is very boring. This stone is very strong, so if I play anything here, it's going to look like I'm defending that, and I don't want to do that. I think I mostly want to break up the bottom.
I mean, he can take c3 at any point in time, but that isn't as large of a move as going, taking the side and pressuring this. So now he's approaching us here, and all I'm going to do the simple variation, the same one that we did up here, and we'll see how he goes with it, if he hanes or if he wants to push to q4. I wouldn't be surprised either way.
That's unexpected. Usually they play the Kema, but I can see why he doesn't want to play the Kema because the right side is so boring.
And again, we're still in opening where the decisions don't matter, honestly, too much. And so it looks like we're going to do this variation. And I'm curious to see how he responds here. If he connects, we are just going to do this to secure the corner, and then we will probably strengthen this group as he strengthens this group, right? We have to keep in mind that as he gets stronger here, this group will get weaker, and so we just need to be mindful of that.
This is very heavy, and I could come under attack. I'm thinking of a lighter move. This is always a fun one. If he cuts, then I get Atari and we do sort of a driving to Suji here, and I end up with a wall. The cut's very bad. If he defends here, I've kind of already defended this group, made it light. But what's the plan after that? Probably see if I can bother this group somewhat. I think that's okay.
Okay, so this is a move I am not familiar with. So there is an elephant eye here, right? Anytime we have this diagonal, we can play this to separate these two stones. That's a little too aggressive here. What I do want to do is make sure that this group down here is strong enough so that if we want to go attack these stones, we've got some strength here. So we can look at just backing off here. We can look at something like this. I'm going to play this knight's move. This is a little weaker coming off this stone, but it's a little more forceful on his. And so we can leverage on the weakness of these three stones while building this up a little more loosely than we typically could. If you wanted to play J4 here, I'd have no issues with that. That's a fine move. This just puts a little more pressure on this group since we are closer to this stone.
Yeah, something like that makes sense. It is wide open here, but it's very hard to attack because he can immediately take c3 at any time. I'm wondering if I can play c3, will he respond, and if so, is he overconcentrated? Because it's kind of dangerous for him to ignore. He's defended. This is moderately efficient. So the next idea I've got is I'm going to bother this shape up here.
So he does eventually come back to c3, so interesting timing there. So we could look at playing something like c2. I feel like that's a little small right now, right? We don't want to play early second line moves. I would consider this an early second line move. We can look at jumping up here and building this a little larger, and that's what we're going to do because he still has some weakness here. So we're going to play this move to jump out towards the center, right? We eventually have to start coming out into the center, and so that's going to work well with this stone. You'll notice we have two fifth line stones now. While also carving out a potential here. I do not anticipate all of these points being mine. But again, because we are near a weak group of his, we can leverage off of that as we build strength and solidify this.
This is the weakest group on the board. This one that I have over here looks weak, but it's very light. I can sacrifice any part of it very easily. Whereas this one is much harder to get to just sort of shed stones from.
And so a lot of this really comes down to relative strength of groups, right? Because he has a weak group here, we can be a little more loose than we normally would. If his group was stronger, if he had a strong group on both sides, we wouldn't be able to get away with moves like this. So now he is going after this group. So it looks like he's just targeting the strength of my groups. He's identifying what group is weakest, and let's go after that. So we should look at strengthening this. We now need to be aware of potential cuts here, though, right? We need to make sure that we protect our cuts. And because he now has this here, we have to be aware that this two point jump can be cut. So we always have D16 in Sente. We can play this because then this cut works. So we can play that and he'll connect, and that'll give us a little more strength here. In this case, how do I want to protect this cut? So in this case, because we actually have the D16 Aji here, we actually are connected to this stone, I believe. So I'm just going to continue to jump out. That'll be able to build off of these stones while still being able to connect back. He also has some shape weaknesses, obviously, between these two stones because they're so far away from one another. So if push comes to shove and a fight breaks out, I can look to split these two stones and run towards my group here. But I don't think it's going to come to that. Okay, so he has come back to strengthen this group. And he has attached to one of our stones, and so we are going to respond to this. And we can look at extending up or extending down. And both have their pros and cons. I like extending down, or extending up rather, because it threatens this cut. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to play this to threaten this cut. So now he came back to further pressure this group. This was mainly to, I think, to stop me from taking B11, right? This was a move I was considering earlier. The reason I didn't want to do is I want C8 or D8. I want those moves to be there for a little bit. And so now this still is. And so we can look at probably protecting this now. We have to really focus on the relative strength of groups. This isn't something that I've gone over much, but this is, one of the steps after you figure out the basics, right? When we've got our basic rules, but eventually, you're going to be strong enough that those basics aren't going to be enough anymore, right? You're going to need to progress beyond that. Relative strength of groups and positional judgment is one of the big skills that we want to develop as well. And so that's basically what this is looking at, am I strong enough here compared to his groups? And if the answer is no, then I need to do something about that. And so this stone's a little weak. This is now stronger. So I can look at something like this to try to keep that stone separated. And so that's actually what I'm going to do. I'm going to play this here just to make this stone weaker while making our group a little bit stronger, right? He put a stone into making his group stronger, which then made our group weaker. And so we now did this to get some strength for us.
My first instinct immediately is this. Just connect everything up. This exchange is just, his stone is doing nothing except defense, and mine is broadcasting influence towards the whole board.
We can look at the push and cut, but I want to set up a little more strength before I do that. I think I'm going to play here first, just to, again, get things a little stronger for us. And so I'm going to play here. This will help develop the top, as well as getting more strength locally for this group.
Oh, that's a little weird. So there's so many weaknesses for black here. This one threatens to cut here, and also this. Can I just go for this now? I'm doing this. I am 100% doing this.
So he's looking to split. So we are going to take this move first. This was the Aji that we had looked at before. Because if he lets us get C17, he's in a little bit of trouble, right? So now he had to answer that, and so now we can connect here. If he cuts, then we get to Atari and get that stone. So we're going to play this here, and then he's just going to play that and point out that him fixing with this bamboo joint actually makes it so we are cut off, because if we play here, then he's going to play this and cut us off. But not the biggest loss in the world. This is, these 4 stones hurt to lose.
He can almost just sacrifice this. It became light suddenly. How did that become light?
But we can now turn on the outside and at least get some profit out here. And so we're going to do this. Again, we've got one of our rules, don't save every stone. So we could have done something with this stone to try to save it. But often, if you try to save all your stones, you end up losing too much.
Oh, that's interesting. So he's going to let me block here. This is a much bigger capture than the other one. And also, I get to keep these stones.
And so I think this is a case where if I tried to push and cut or try to connect up, that we would have lost a little bit there. So that's why I decided to give this up. Right? Once you realize that you've lost these 4, this stone isn't that much worse on top of that. So from here we can look at extending, but I don't think this comes in Sente, and I don't think this does enough for us. And so I think we can leave this for now.
This is big. I mean, this upper left corner is a lot of points. The top side is also pretty large, but it's much less safe.
And so now we should take a look at his weak groups, and really the only weak group he has is this one here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to play this move to now go after his stones. This is similar to what he did up here. This isn't going to result in me, capturing any of his stones unless he makes a mistake here. But this is similar to what happened up here. There's a weak group. We've got strong groups nearby, and so we're going to pressure it.
So this is sort of putting pressure on my weakest group. This is a very, very sensible idea.
Whenever you're attacking a group, you want to make sure that you're getting profit. The goal is not to kill this group, right? The goal is never to kill the group. Sometimes your opponent makes a mistake, like up here with what I did here. Sometimes your opponent makes a mistake and it ends up with a kill. But your goal shouldn't be to kill. Your goal should just be to find profit somewhere. In this case, we can look at developing the right side and obviously making this corner larger as well. That'll be the profit that we get from attacking this group. So now, as we chase this out, we can develop the right side and maybe even develop the center. And so we're going to play another knight's move here, looking to surround, right? Because we can also turn this into potential points, right? We've got some strength here. We've got some strength here now. So if we're able to surround this group or get some forcing moves in Sente as this group runs, then we'll be able to build another border here.
What I don't want him to do is have good moves in this area which build up the top, because the top is actually a fun place to develop. The top is interesting.
And so the question now is, how do we want to block this, right? He's looking to run out, and he can run this way towards his friends, he can run this way towards his friends, he can run this way to make shape, he can run this way to get out a little more. I'm going to block him from coming this way. I think this is the important direction. So we're going to block him here so that we can try to build something here. We've already built some good potential on the right. We need one more stone to cap this off, to really get this into some territory. Because right now he could probably play something like R8 and would still live fairly easily. So with a stone this high, we really don't have the right side. And so now he's playing this move to stop us from developing this. But we can play a move like this or like this to threaten this cut. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to play this move to threaten this cut. And this will further grow our potential on the right side here. And so he connects there. We are just going to extend. I suspect he's going to play P13 to get the bamboo joint, right? He needs to make sure, he's going to be focusing on his stones not being able to be cut either, right? We need to focus on making sure all of our stones are connected. So there he goes, playing the bamboo joint just to make sure that everything is connected there. And so now we can look at securing this, but I don't think it's time for that quite yet. I think we should be looking at continuing to surround this group to make sure that we can get strength on the outside. He still has a weak group that isn't alive. Playing a move up here only gets us points. I know that's going to sound a little weird, right? Because the whole point of this game, right, is to get more territory, get more points so you win the game. But it's actually a little too early to just be focusing on points. If you look at what he's done, he actually hasn't put too much effort into getting just points. His left side is quite large, right? And it's most likely going to be large enough to win the game. But it's possible that because of this weak group, we'll be able to turn things around. So because of the weakness here, we can Hane. And so as we're doing this, we'll be able to build this up even more. And he needs to be careful. He's most likely going to extend, because again, he can't let us Atari and cut in here. He needs to make sure his stones stay connected. And if he plays somewhere else, then we're going to be able to cut things off there. And so he did do that. So we can look at an interesting move like here, because we've got this push, right? But if we do this, he'll probably gladly take that stone. But it's worth taking a look at. In this case, what are we going to do? I think we're going to extend one more time, get our strength here. He's going to be able to push through this, and this is fine, because we're just going to go and continue to make sure that he can't get out too easily, right? And while we're doing this, we're building this up. This isn't going to turn too much, right, because of his stones that broke in here. So now, I'm not sure it's worth doing anything over here. It might be time to look at reductions. So we can look at something over here, or we can look at growing this. I think I want to grow this. And so I'm going to play N14, which is very high. There's a very high move. I'm kind of hoping that we've got enough stones here that an invasion in here will be difficult to make alive.
Right, so he's defending now. Is this a real area? Can I just dive in like here? It looks like this will work. I don't think he can kill me.
But he absolutely is going to try. And he has to. He can't let this all turn into points. And so now we just need to make sure that he can't live too easily on us. And so we need to block both his escape and block him from getting a base. And so we need to take a look at which of those two is easier. Is it easier for him to make a base, or is it easier for him to run out? And in this case, I've got a lot of stones surrounding him, so I don't think it's going to be easy for him to run out. We also have to look at, is it going to be easy enough for him to connect up to this group? So I don't think him being able to run is going to be an easy option. And so we want to make sure that he doesn't connect to a living group, and we want to make sure that he can't get a base. And so I think the best move for that is playing this diagonal, which takes away his base and stops him from easily connecting up to this group. And so here he's going to attach to this stone, and that is a common tactic that is used. You attach to a strong stone to get strength yourself. Again, we don't want to attach to weak stones, but if you can attach to a strong stone, you can get strength yourself. And we're going to either extend or Hane. In this case, I'm going to extend. I want to stay strong here.
I'm willing to sacrifice this stone. I'm willing to sacrifice both of them. Just make sure that it's not all black. This is the most aggressive move, right? If he really wants to kill me, he's going to play N13 type of thing. I hope he doesn't, because, you know, I don't want to have to prove that this is alive.
And really challenge him to be able to actually get 2 eyes in here. If we had Haned, that provides. If we had Haned, then that creates cutting opportunities, which we really don't want. We don't want him to be able to just use a lot of weaknesses in our shape to get shape moves himself. And so here, same thing. He's attaching to this. We're going to descend to, again, make sure that he doesn't get a base too easily. So at this point, really, the only way for these stones to live are to get 2 eyes or connect to a living group. Part of getting 2 eyes can be killing some of our stones, so we need to be mindful that we've got, you know, a group that's not fully alive yet, And so we are going to play here to stop him from, separating us from our group. But now you'll notice that he has created a cut here, right? There's a cut that we need to be aware of. And so in this case, we are going to take a look at what this does. And we want to make sure that we stay connected, and I think the best way of staying connected is with this shape here. And so he is looking to run out. So we are going to take this cut, or this Atari. Although now we need to be careful. We need to be careful because now when he pushes here, he can go here because it's not a self Atari. So he may have found a means to get alive. We will see. But I believe we need to connect here, because otherwise if he pushes through, things don't look too good. So we're going to play right here and see what happens. Worth noting, capturing this stone is only one eye. So it is not the end of the world if he captures that. I'm actually going to extend once, because this is still only one eye. When they capture two stones, it's only one eye. And so we can look at this to try to poke out any other eyes that he can potentially get in here. Because he's got one, but one is not two. And so just as long as he only has one eye, we are okay. So we have to look at where is he potentially going to get a second eye, and it looks like he could get a second eye here. And so we need to make sure that doesn't happen. So we are going to play here to make sure that he doesn't get a second eye here. And then we'll just have to deal with him running out towards our stones here. So this one's gotten pretty complicated on us. I think it's fair to say if he lives here that this game is completely over. And I think it's also fair to say if he dies here, this game may also be completely over. So curious to see how this goes. So I need to extend, because I can't let him connect here. So we are going to extend one time, and then we're going to see how he can work against our weaknesses here. So he's looking to push through, but I think we are okay. I think we are okay if he pushes through. Okay, so I did some reading. I didn't make you guys bear through all that. I'm going to block him here and hope that my reading did not fail me, but it's very possible that it did. But we will see. We're going to block, he's going to cut, and we need to connect. Otherwise, he gets the snap back. So he's going to play here. I'm going to play here. This gets us one eye. And I believe we can either connect underneath or get a second eye here. And he's still cut off. He still only has one eye. And so now he's going this way. So we can look at this. And I think that is fine. If we go here, he pushes, we do this. Yeah, I think we are fine if we block here. And so we're going to block here again. We need to make sure that he does not get a second eye. We need to make sure that he does not connect to a living group. Okay, so in our hopes to make sure he does not have any eyes, we are going to play here. I believe we can connect up here fine. So a bit of an unfortunate thing happened here. It looks like my opponent's computer crashed and he timed out of this game, which is too bad because this was a really interesting fight, and AI says that white is way ahead right here, so AI sees a way for white to live. If I'm white here, I most assuredly die. and I felt pretty secure in this. With that said, my opponent is strong and knows plenty of tricks, but this looks tough for white. Though AI does say that white has a way to live here because it's saying that white is up by 50 points, which is quite a bit because there's no way white is up by 50 if we capture this. So a bit of an unfortunate end to this one, but it was a very interesting game. And honestly, this game was going to be decided by this fight one way or the other. I believe that one of us would have resigned based on the result of this fight. If he had lived, I would have resigned. And I think if he had died, he would have resigned. So I think the only fair thing here is to call this one a draw. And you want to know what? I'll take a draw. I will take a draw here. And my opponent isn't here to argue this. And so I think by popular vote, for all in favor of this being a draw, say aye. Aye. All against, say nay. I don't hear anything, so I guess it's a draw. And so we'll take it. So that's where we're going to leave this one today. Again, a little bit of an unfortunate ending, but I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I'm really enjoying this series. But either way, thank you for coming out for another ride in the Struggle Bus where every wheel is an empty triangle. Have a good one, guys.